So welcome everyone. This is Corey Linkle, Associate Director of the Undergraduate Program in Biomedical Engineering. And I'm here today with a group from BME to talk about the field of biomedical engineering. And so I'll have each of them introduce themselves. And with our student ambassadors, they're going to give what year they are and where they plan to go after graduation. So, but we'll start with Chantal, our academic advisor.
So I'm Chantal Brown. I am the academic advisor for biomedical engineering. During the presentation, I will also be monitoring the chat. So if you do have questions at any point, please put them in the chat. We will be having a Q&A session at the end, but I will also be answering questions as they come in. And if you have a very specific question that you don't feel comfortable sending to everyone, you can send it just to me.
All right, Noah?
Yeah, sure. Hi, everybody. Thanks for coming out. My name is Noah Nye. I'm a fifth-year senior in BME. I'm pre-med, plan going into medical school after Purdue, going through the interview process right now, which is an absolute joy with all the virtual stuff. So thanks for coming out, guys. Glad to be here.
Tony?
Hi, I'm Tony Vukovic. I am a senior in biomedical engineering, and after graduation, I'm still on the fence about this, but I'm planning on either getting a master's in ECE or just going directly into industry, or going into industry and then coming back to it later. So.
All right, Leonie?
Hi guys, thanks for being here. I'm Leonie. I'm a senior in biomedical engineering. I'm planning to go into grad school for something with engineering/management stuff, and hoping to get an internship as well after I graduate. So.
All right, and Chris?
Hi guys, I'm Christopher Nasse. I'm also a senior in biomedical engineering, and I'm doing my applications right now for industry. So feel free to ask any questions.
Cool. So let's get started with talking about what biomedical engineering actually is. And it helps to understand that the field of biomedical engineering is very interdisciplinary in that it overlaps with almost all of the engineering disciplines. The major ones I've got listed here. I'm going to have each of our student ambassadors pick one and talk about what it is, give an example of that area of biomedical engineering, and also what field of engineering it's closely related to.
Can you switch the slide maybe to the second slide, Corey?
Oh, did it not slide over? Okay, I apologize. Are we, no, it's not moving over?
So you're not sharing the presentation, you're sharing the slide overview.
Yeah.
Okay, this one down.
You might want to share your first screen.
All right,
yeah.
Let me unshare for just a moment and share the proper screen. Okay, so it should be this one. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah, there we go.
Okay, sorry about that. Yeah, okay. So since Leonie, you spoke up, you get to pick one and move on.
Awesome. So I'll talk about more the engineering biomaterials, biomechanics. I'm really interested in everything that has to do with prosthetics, which involves both biomaterials and biomechanics. And so I feel like this is a field that is really interested. If you guys have any questions about that, I did research with Dr. Eric Nauman in the Engineering Research and Regenerative Technology Lab. And I feel that that's something I'm really, really interested in. So if you guys have any interest in that, I'm willing to answer questions. Yeah.
I'll go next, if that's all right. So I mentioned that I wanted to get a master's in electrical engineering, and this correlates really well with instrumentation. So I work in Pedro Irithoki's lab in the School of Biomedical Engineering, and I do a lot of creating circuitry to collect biomedical signals, and also creating a lot of circuitry to like stimulate nerves. And I also write a lot of code to do some signal processing to try and get all of the noise out of the signal so we can do what we want there and achieve our goals as well. So if you have any questions about instrumentation, you can directly message me about that. I'll be happy to answer.
Tony is very good in coding, just by the way.
Yeah. Thank you.
Putting this out there.
Hey, Corey, I'll go ahead and take the imaging one.
Okay.
I'm in Dr. Gordon's lab, cardiovascular imaging research laboratory, and we do a lot of ultrasound and photoacoustic imaging for small animals, mice usually. And so we can study all kinds of different disease progression. So one of the papers I worked on was a tissue engineered vascular graft, particularly interested in pediatric conduits. And so they're providing an engineering solution for these kids that don't have grafts for different arterial diseases. So if you guys have any questions about that, love to answer.
And I guess I'll have to talk about quantitative cellular and systems engineering. So that part of biomedical engineering is, can relate really to anything that my peers just talked about. It's mostly, for the first part, it's molecular level. So we look at the cells, we can see cell cultures, see how to determine anything that we are looking for or trying to improve. And then for the systems engineering, which is something that help us achieve more efficiency in the work we're doing. So if you have any questions about that, I'll be happy to answer those.
All right, thank you guys. And to be clear, engineered biomaterials and biomechanics, clear overlap with mechanical and materials engineering. Imaging and instrumentation both have very strong connections with electrical computer engineering. The quantitative cellular and systems engineering has a lot of overlap with both biological engineering, some chemical engineering, some straight up biology, and also any field that looks at systems engineering. IE is probably one of the strongest in that area. So a lot of overlap there. As we talk about our program though, the biomedical engineering program at Purdue is one of the smaller schools, and with it, we do things a little bit differently than some of the larger schools do. We have labs every semester, which Chantal's going to talk about. Our program's small, so we get to know each other. It's very hands-on. You know your faculty. But more importantly, I want to ask my ambassadors, why did you choose BME versus other engineering disciplines?
Yeah, I got a great answer for that one, Corey. So when I was a sophomore in high school, my dad was unfortunately involved in traumatic injury where he had both of his shoulders replaced. And so I was really interested in getting to know like what was going on in the OR, the operating room, and see how biomedical engineers can make a difference in medical devices and supplying those kind of implants to families just like my own. So that's kind of like my reason why getting into BME. I'm also from Indiana, so in-state tuition was very, very nice.
Do you want us all to go, Corey?
Yeah, if you have something to add, yes. Please.
Just something real quick, it might be less inspiring than Noah, but I just didn't know if I wanted to be a doctor or engineer at first. And so I was like, okay, let me go into the middle ground between those two professions. And it turned out to be the best program that I could go in, and it got me into some really awesome things. And so I think the diversity of the program and the fact that we get the chance to touch the different fields is really amazing. So.
Mm-hmm.
That's also the reason why I chose BME. I actually didn't come to Purdue wanting to do BME. I didn't even know BME was like something specific, but your presentation my freshman year, Corey, helped me understand that BME, like you said, overlaps with a lot of different fields in engineering, which made it sound very interesting to me, which is why I decided to go for it, and I'm glad I did. So thank you, Corey.
Right.
Yeah. And my story is similar to Leonie's and Chris's. Both my parents were chemical engineers, and I didn't want to become a chemical engineer, but I had to pick an engineering discipline. I thought I wanted to be a doctor. I went in there, And then I was like, another 8 more years of school. After this, I think I can handle it. So I was just like, but like coding and all that type of stuff, you know, took my interest, and then, you know, I just went from there. So I just, you know, figured it out as I went along.
Cool. Thank you. And outside of the classroom, so one of the things we do is in our program, we make sure that there are so many opportunities for students to get experience outside of the classroom that helps them become more professional, helps them choose the path that they want to go on, whether it's going to med school or grad school or going directly into industry. And so why don't you guys talk about some of the things that you've done outside of the classroom that helped you decide where you want to end up going?
I can talk a little bit about the research. So I thought I would hate research at first before I started doing it. And once I got into education engineering lab at first, and then I kind of started liking it a little bit more. And then when I got into more of the prosthetics and more the biomedical engineering, biomechanics stuff in Dr. Eric Nauman's lab, I started really, really liking it. And I think it was a good parallel between, you know, the industry and research. It's not like completely different. You still get to work with people and work on a common goal, and like learn from each other, learn from grad students, learn from professors, and work directly with them. And so that's kind of like my experience, my thoughts on that.
I can take the clinical exposure one. After my sophomore year, I was really interested in getting into the clinic, getting into healthcare and seeing where medical devices make an impact with people. And so the IU Methodist Cardio Mini course was perfect for that. It's a 2-week immersion course. You go to the Methodist hospital. You spend all day there, just like a working day, with surgeons, nurses, NPs, all those kind of clinical professionals. And you get to see these devices, ventricular assist device, surgery, transplants, those kind of things. And that was just a really instrumental clinical exposure and opportunity that kind of just shed light on how biomedical engineers fit into the healthcare plan.
Now, Noah, you've done more than just that, though.
I have, yeah. So I had the opportunity to come back and lead the program this summer, which was kind of crazy with all the COVID stuff, but I was in the ICU, ORs every day, seeing everything that's going on. And then I also lead the program and bring these students back into the clinical setting, which has just been instrumental in seeing the difference that makes in students' careers and what they expect from what they want to do if they want to go to med school, industry, how all those work together.
And you've also done a co-op and a study abroad, haven't you?
Yeah. I have, yeah. Been busy. That's why I'm on my 5th year doing my victory lap.
Okay.
But yeah, I did a co-op at Zimmer Biomet. There are a lot of orthopedic manufacturing company. You kind of get to see like behind the industry that brings all these devices to healthcare. I did a rotation biologics, knees, and then case development. And then I did a study abroad in Ireland, which was a ton of fun. I did like a little design project for a community-based rehabilitation center in Ireland. It was basically coding a game for these rehabilitation patients to try and get their independence of life back.
Right. Now, I hope you guys don't mind if I move forward. Chris, Anthony, you're going to be okay. But let's talk a little bit about co-ops and internships specifically, which is something that students don't realize. When you look at just the list of Indiana companies, all of the ones that we have that are in gold are companies that we have reciprocal relationships with that guarantee that they're going to be taking biomedical engineers every year on co-ops or internships. And so you don't realize this, but medical devices and healthcare products is the #2 export of Indiana. So we're actually very well situated to have a lot of industry opportunities in and around Indiana. But our students get jobs and internships really all over the country. And I want to point out some cool ones like Apple in Cupertino, California, GE Healthcare, GM in Detroit. So there's a lot of different things that our students end up doing that might surprise you that are related to biomedical engineering. Noah talked about study abroad opportunities. He went on the Global Device Design short-term program in Ireland. Chris also went on that program. Tony, I know you were set to go to Denmark until the pandemic happened. So unfortunately did not get to do that this year.
Very upsetting.
I
also went to Ecuador.
Oh, cool. Yes. And so we do have a lot of short and long-term study abroad opportunities that are designed to fit into the curriculum so that you're not taking extra time to do study abroad. So looking at where our students go after graduation, I know our ambassadors talked a lot about where they're planning on going. And on average, most of our students do go directly into industry, but we do have a good, healthy 30% or more go on to grad school. And the fifth-year master's option is becoming increasingly popular to students because it's a way to start your master's degree in your senior year and finish it 1 year later. And so you graduate in 5 years with a bachelor and master's degree, which is very cool. And we have a lot of options even for that fifth-year master's so that you can take it with a thesis or without a thesis, and you can do an internship as part of it as well. When we look at industry and where our students go, this is just a small subset of the entire list of where our students go. But in addition to the medical device industry, which is the bulk of where our students end up when they go into industry, we have students go into the wearable technologies like Apple and Fitbit, into the automotive industry, working on both ergonomics and crash test dummy facilities like in Fiat Chrysler or Ford or GM, and in consumable product companies like Procter & Gamble and Kimberly-Clark that make lots of different everyday products that intimately contact the human body, whether it's diapers or facial wipes or hair care or skincare products. So there's a lot of things that biomedical engineers can do. You're not just limited to the biomedical device industry. Here's a short list of some of the grad schools and med schools that our students have successfully gotten into. And I do want to point out there are a couple MD PhD programs that biomedical engineers at Purdue are pretty successful getting into. Very competitive, very prestigious opportunities. So now I'm going to turn it over to Chantal to talk about the curriculum.
So, couple of things with the curriculum. The curriculum that we're presenting assumes that you are not ahead in any coursework. So this is just the standard plan for all BME students. If you have credit for a course that shows up on this slide or the next slide, you obviously do not need to take it again. And the courses that are in blue, those are major specific courses that only BME students can take. So if you're ahead in certain things, you want to get a jump on something, the courses that are in black are the ones that you'd be able to start taking a bit of ahead of time. I do want to point out, and this will also come up again later in the slides, but for this fall semester, this third semester, if you do not take Chem 116 or you don't have credit for it, you're going to have to add that to that fall semester, which will bump up those credits significantly. But I just want to throw that out there now, since we have this slide up here. But I do really want you guys to get a student perspective of the classes. So I'm going to have each of the ambassadors take a semester since they've all been through the program. And Tony, why don't you talk about the transition from FYE into BME? Because I know a lot of students struggle with that, especially with going to 18 credit hours that first semester.
The struggle from going from FYE into BME.
Yes.
I'm probably not the best person to ask because I did summer start, which took a lot of the coursework out of the equation for me, and then also right after that, I did summer school right after freshman year as well, which took a lot of credits even more. So I was doing 12 credits second semester freshman year, 12 credits like first semester and second semester sophomore year. So I guess what I would heavily recommend to do is just to take, whether it be in person or online, just any like classes that you can, at least in the beginning, at least like with the easy classes that you can just knock out as well. And that way that'll free up a lot more time to focus on like math. 261 was a really hard class. Like all of the most important classes, you can just get good grades in those. Because when people ask you in interviews, and at least the professors that I've had to ask you or talk to for research, they'll ask you about I've been asked about my GPA and where my shortcomings were, and fortunately I didn't say that they were they were those big classes because I put a lot of time into those, but I didn't get those positions, by the way, but because I was a sophomore still, but even I guess the point is it's the transition is as bad as you kind of set yourself up for it. Is that a good answer?
Yeah, I forgot you did summer start.
Yeah.
Who wants to talk about fourth semester, so spring sophomore year? If you can remember that far back.
Yeah, no, I'm trying to remember. I remember that this lab, 206 lab, was really cool, especially because I'm interested in biomechanics and all that stuff. And so like actually having hands-on experience testing materials and like getting into failure and stuff. And so I think that semester was really cool for that lab, definitely.
Can I weigh in for just a moment?
Are you going to talk about the lab redesigns?
No.
Oh, yes.
So in summary, each semester has a little bit of a flavor of BME, like one different flavor of the different types of BME. So the first semester is very cell focused, cell biology focused. And so biological and chemical engineering leaning students, pre-med students tend to like that first one. As Leonie said, the second semester in BME is really strong in biomechanics and biomaterials. So anyone into prosthetics, orthopedics really loves that semester. And one thing that's really important is these 2 semesters give you in the labs all the skill sets that you need to be really useful in any company when you do a co-op. And that's very good. You want to say that, Noah?
Yeah, so my co-op at Zimmer Biomet, I used biomechanics of hard and soft tissues and ME 270. I think that might be on another slide, but those are bread and butter of what we did on co-op. So it was very instrumental.
Do you want to take us to junior year?
Yeah.
So junior and senior year. Junior year fall semester is the roughest semester in the program for most students. Even though you are taking probably the least amount of credits, that fall senior year credit totals off. It should be 16, I think. If I can do math real quick. So the 15 credit hours in junior year is very deceptive. But fall junior year is where you get into more of the bioelectricity, instrumentation. It's very ECE heavy. Who would like to talk about this semester?
I can take that one. To me, this was my favorite semester actually, because this is where I felt like I was most at home. I love using my hands and getting to build things. And so part of these classwork is we would build common devices that were within the clinic, like EKG, EEG. They're devices that basically tell how the heart is functioning, how the brain's functioning, how your muscle is functioning. To me, that was very instrumental in like just seeing on how I can apply my skills directly within the clinic. And then also fluid transport. It's a hard class, but it's one of those that's going to set yourself up. You actually get to use the math that you've learned all through this, all through Purdue in like a very meaningful way. You get to connect the dots between what you're actually doing and how it helps. So.
And in junior spring, that I think is the best semester of the program through there, because it is kind of you're able to take a breath, and the core BME courses, you do your penultimate lab, and as you progress in the lab sequence, you're given less and less instructions. So by the time you get to the biotransport lab, all you're given is a problem, and you get to design the experiment, you do the whole lab basically on your own. And then you've got your, I like to call it junior design seminar, because it's done during junior year. And then your signals and systems, ECE 301. And then you'll also start to notice you're having more spaces for electives. Chris, do you want to talk about?
Yeah, sure. So based on what you were saying, this semester was particularly unique for me when I got to it, because on one hand we had the transport lab. For the first time it was separate than the theoretical class, which was taken the semester before that. So that was interesting to look at what we already learned and how much of it we actually had, and then see how we can develop solutions and modules for each of these problems we get. Like you said, we didn't have much instructions. That was interesting. And then I really liked the professional seminar because it got us set up for senior design in a way I don't think different engineering majors have. It's not the same way. So that was interesting to get that first view of what senior design would be like, and in parallel, be able to start choosing our own classes.
Yeah, and then obviously senior year, we do senior design in the fall only. As of right now, we only offer senior design in the fall. And all of the current ambassadors here are doing senior design. So if you can, because I know some groups sign non-disclosure agreements and whatnot with their industry or clinical partners for their projects. Can you give us a quick, 1 or 2 sentence summary of what your senior design project is about?
Yeah, I can do that. So our project is really cool. We started in 390, and our group wanted to stay together for senior design. And so we've been working on it since junior year. And we're basically looking at preventing pressure ulcers for athletes that are performing in wheelchairs. And so that's a huge problem, not only for athletes, but also in the healthcare settings. And so we're tackling a big problem out there, but we're having a pretty cool solutions right now, which is basically a nodal cushion filled with air that could actuate based on the pressure that we got, the input pressure. And so we've been working with professors on campus that have been really important into getting knowledge and knowing how to design our solution.
Yeah, our senior engineering design project was originally proposed by Dr. Lindsay Weaver. She is the Chief Medical Officer for the Indiana State Department of Health, basically trying to address the inconclusive results and false negatives for COVID tests. So the nasopharyngeal swab that collects mucus from the back of the throat. And so we're trying to provide an on-site colorimetric detection for these healthcare professionals so that they know that they get an adequate sample within the clinical setting. So it's not going to be shipped off to another place. It's they know it hands-on right there with the patient.
My senior design project was proposed by Dr. Charlie Babbs, and it's a portable oxygen concentrator for low resource settings. So in rural areas in like Africa, in places it's like, like in Russia, they're unable to, for whatever reason, unable to get like portable oxygen concentrators because they're too expensive or they're just too bulky and you can't get oxygen cylinders out there. So we're developing like this little chamber that pressurizes and depressurizes with a series of valves and actually concentrates oxygen with a series of steps, like literal steps, like you step on a pressure pump and it pressurizes it and releases oxygen.
My senior design team is actually working on peritoneal dialysis, which is seen as the home solution for dialysis. Current solutions have some issues since it's done by the patient himself. There are some issues with the drainage and the filling of the peritoneal volume. And so we are trying to figure out a way to measure the dialysis fluid, dialysate, that is being filled and drained in order to minimize pain to the patient while he's doing it back home.
So wide variety of senior design projects, all of them working on teams. Some students will carry these senior design projects forward and work on them further during senior year spring with both their original senior design teams and others. Other students who decide they want to get a taste of senior design a bit earlier, or who, for whatever reason, want to help out with those senior design projects. The rest of the electives, the life science and the BME technical engineering electives, those are really a chance for students to specialize further. So for instance, if you are really interested in the neurological side of things, for your life science electives, you may take neurobiology. There's a couple of neurobiology courses that students can take. For your technical electives, you may take more ECE heavy courses or some BME neural engineering courses. And then for your general electives, you may end up taking like psychology classes. So that's just kind of a actual real world example of a student who that's what they're interested in. So that's kind of how they've chosen to do their electives. But it is really student specific. And it also allows students to pick up extra academic things such as minors or certificates or fit in those pre-med or other pre-professional requirements. I think all the ambassadors here either are currently doing pre-professional requirements, a minor, a certificate, or at one time we're doing one of those three. I believe Leonie's doing multiple things.
Yeah, can I talk on that? Okay, so I just want to say that like one of the benefits of being in BME is that you'll be able to work with Chantal and Corey, because with all that curriculum that you just saw, Chantal was able to like help me get 4 minors. And so she knows everything. And if there's a question that she doesn't know, she's going to find the answer for you. So, so don't feel like the curriculum is too much, because she was able to like find classes that was going to mix it up so that I can be able to do 4 minors. So yeah, I just want to put it out there. And then Corey also, one of the projects that I've been involved with, he was one of the first one that I came up with, and he like really helps us get into projects and just get other experience like aside from the curriculum that you just saw. So just wanted to say that.
Yeah. So Corey, can you go to the next slide?
Certainly.
So we've talked a lot about BME. So how do you get in? Essentially, pass all your FYE classes with a C- or higher. If you took courses during spring 2020, and you took them as pass, no pass, those can be used towards FYE requirements as well as BME degree requirements. I don't know if there's any students who were here in spring 2020, but if you were, you can use those classes if you took those as pass, no pass, if they fulfill the appropriate requirements. And then obviously you'd have to put down BME as your first choice. For your science selective, we highly recommend Chem 116 and or CS 159. We do recognize that if you're not currently in Chem 115, you are not going to be able to take Chem 116 next semester because Chem 115 is a prereq for Chem 116. In that case, your science selective, we would recommend you take CS 159. But let's say for some reason you decide to take biology 110 or 111 as your science selective and you get into BME, that first semester in the program, you're looking at 22 credit hours of required coursework if you are not ahead in anything. And that's a lot. So please don't do it to yourself. Next slide. So BME does not participate in December T2M. So we will not admit any students in December during that transition to major process. I do not believe that BME is an option for the T2M survey if you are planning on transitioning to major at the end of the semester. If you are ahead in coursework, we do recommend any of the courses on the screen: Chem 116, CS 159, ME 270, Math 261 or 262, depending on where you are in your math sequence, Philosophy 270 or Stat 350. If you have specific questions about your particular situation, I do recommend that you send me an email so we can set up an appointment or make an appointment with Corey to discuss. And if you do have questions about the transition to major process, whether or not you're eligible at a particular semester, all of that fun stuff, please talk to your FYE advisor. Next slide. More information can be found on our website. Very easy to get to, purdue.edu/BME. You can schedule an appointment with Corey very easily through Boiler Connect. For your reasons, select transition to major or engineering professional school inquiry. I am going to be closed to non-BME student appointments until at least early November because I have to see all of the BME students for registration in the next 5 weeks. But I am available for email.
All right. And what we're going to do now is stop the share. And we're going to open this up to questions. Keep typing questions. I've been trying to answer them furiously in the chat, but do please keep adding your questions. And Preeti is going to share a slide for how to get credit for attending this. And for a few of you that came in late or got kicked off, this is being recorded, so you'll be able to come back and watch it again. Do talk to your FYE instructor about how to access it. So Preeti, if you want to share the slide for how to, and we will take questions through the chat as she's sharing this.
So some of the questions that have come up, I do encourage everyone to peruse the chat. But there's been several regarding the curriculum. For example, what are some examples of general education electives? Are there specializations in BME similar to what there are in biological engineering? can student, freshmen, get involved in research? So general education electives, essentially any class in college or liberal arts, your ONHR courses, a lot of the courses in Cranert, so management, econ. There are some outlier departments such as psychology, ag economics that are also considered to be gen eds. We don't have formal specializations, but the tech and life science elective lists give you a chance to specialize, to kind of build your own specialization. In terms of getting involved in research, it is possible, and we have had freshmen get involved in research in BME. It's just up to you. It's up to the student to contact any faculty member that they're interested in getting research with, to do research with, I mean. Math is not a gen ed. However, you can minor in math. Some of the most common minors for BME students are psychology, ECE, the ENTR certificate, management, econ, and I feel like I'm missing another big one. But those are common.
Critical disability studies is pretty common.
We actually only have one student doing it right now.
Oh, it used to be common. Okay.
Generally, if it's a minor that is housed in college or liberal arts, it's going to be a lot easier to fit into your plan, because your gen ed electives are much easier to find every single semester. Ambassadors. What extracurricular activities did you do in your freshman year?
Well, I'm in the women's basketball team, so that's a big one. But also I got involved into a couple of clubs during my freshman year, I'm pretty sure. And so it's really just to kind of get out and look for things that you like and to do like other than school. And then you meet people that kind of like what you like. And so it's definitely possible to do extracurricular activity in your freshman year.
I worked at a construction company and just made money and saved it for tuition, extracurricular activities, those kind of things. So you can do pretty much whatever you want if you want to get ahead in research or any of those kind of things. But yeah, I just grinded the paycheck.
I did like engineering study abroad semester, but it wasn't really based on specific engineering. We just went and learned how to network with companies and visit manufacturing sites. So that was something I did that was nice my freshman year. And I also worked on campus.
I can't remember if it was freshman or sophomore year, but I was in a Purdue Mind, which is a biomedical engineering club. That's where you brainstorm an idea and then you just create it. And then you submit, and then you make that idea a reality, and then you submit that to competitions and win money for the club. So that was pretty fun.
Right. Can I interrupt? Preeti, is there any advice that you give the attendees if they have trouble registering their attendance
Yes.
through the QR code?
Yeah, if you guys have any problem accessing the QR code, then please drop your names and your Purdue email ID here in the chat box. We would monitor that for you and make sure that you have your attendance. Yeah. So just write your name and email ID in the chat box if you're not able to scan the QR code.
All right.
Excellent.
Back to questions.
You transition to major at the end of the second semester. For a majority of the students, that is going to be when they finish completing all of FYE requirements. There are a handful who will transition to major after this fall semester, but it's really going to depend on whether or not you have fulfilled all of the FYE requirements. So that's monitored by FYE, and they're the ones who determine whether or not you have completed all of your requirements. And as promised, my cat has joined us. Hi. For those of you who are pre-med, which I think, Noah, you may be the only one, did you take summer classes for pre-med?
I didn't take any summer classes for the direct prerequisites to get into medical school, except for physics. I took physics 241 during the summer, and that just kind of moved a hard class out of the regular semester, so I could focus on it in the summer. But all the other prereqs, BME specifically really fits into the pre-med schedule because so many of the classes that we take qualify for the prerequisites for medical school. So a lot of medical schools, when you're doing the secondary applications, you can select which classes meet the requirements for their school. So like a lot of lab classes, a lot of biomolecular classes fit those prereqs. So it really matches up well.
I would say it is common for pre-med students to do at least one semester of summer classes. Generally for that semester, if they don't have credits for these classes already, they'll do Psych 120, Soc 100, and biochemistry. Corey, this is a good question for you. A student is looking into gear. How well does that fit into BME, or should they just focus on BME?
So I will say the gear program was designed for mechanical engineering's curriculum. And so it works seamlessly in mechanical engineering. In other disciplines like BME, it doesn't always fit the way it's initially advertised. I do think that it is possible to do gear, but it will require a lot of work on your part to make it all work to do that. If your goal is just to do a study abroad and you don't really care about all of the gear requirements, just do a study abroad and don't bother signing up for gear just to drop it later. But if you do really want everything that gear has to offer, work with me and I'll help you kind of figure out how to make it work. But it's not a perfect fit, unfortunately.
So if a student is interested in cancer research or cancer medicine, would a better fit be chemical engineering or biomedical? And can they do either and still aim to work with cancer?
On this one, I would say biomedical is actually more closely related to cancer research than chemical engineering, more likely biological engineering. Chemical engineering might be looking specifically at drug formation, but that would probably be better fit with pharmacology. And so biological and biomedical engineering are going to look at the biological mechanisms of cancer development and looking at it in a systems engineering approach to find ways to disrupt the development of cancer and progression of cancer. If you want to do something that's more biochemistry or more pharmaceutical related, because we do have students that go into the pharmaceutical industry, there is no one best way. You're going to be working with people from a wide range of disciplines on this problem. Cancer research is completely interdisciplinary. So I don't know that I can tell you the best way to do it. I would recommend that you actually contact the Cancer Research Institute that's on campus and talk to them about the different disciplines that their researchers have represent and see if they can give you some insight into what discipline would be the best for you.
I would also add that Dr. Luis Solorio is doing awesome work for cancer research, and it's really, really cool what he's doing, and he's in BME. So if you're interested, I would reach out to him too.
Yeah, I've put his name in the chat.
And we have had students work specifically with him on cancer research.
Yeah, and I think if you want to create an educational experience that's going to teach you a lot of the fundamentals, especially within like basic science and wet lab, that's going to be applicable to cancer research. Biomedical engineering is a great fit for that.
So do any BME students go into the physical therapy realm? And if so, is it feasible to complete prereqs? Yes and yes. It's, as with any other pre-professional program, it's just a matter of creating a solid plan of study that has all of the prereqs in there. I would recommend that if you're interested in any of those pre-professional schools, to go meet with an advisor in pre-professional advising. I believe you can make an appointment via Boiler Connect very easily, and they can walk you through the requirements for any of the pre-professional schools, med school, vet school, PT, OT, all of that fun stuff, including law school. So this is a common fear for students. What if you go through transition to major and you don't get into your first choice, specifically like biomedical engineering? Will you be behind to transition to another major? You aren't necessarily going to be behind. However, for your first and your second choice schools, you do want to be strategic in what you choose as your first and second choice. Some of the majors are more popular than others. Some of them are space limited. BME happens to be a very popular major and also very much space limited. So if you don't get into your first choice school, there is a possibility that you can still get into your second choice school, or you can stay in FYE and wait until that next round of T2M happens. It really depends on how much you really want a particular school. And unfortunately, it is to a certain extent a numbers game. And each major, once the spring semester gets underway, they will have a better idea of what their capacity is for students who are planning on transitioning to major in May at the end of the spring semester. You want to add anything to that, Corey, about transition to major?
At this point, no, there's a lot of unknowns at the moment in terms of how it's going to happen for this group. So yeah, we just want you to stay tuned to any information that comes through first year engineering about how transition to major is going to work.
That includes the enrollment management policy, AKA the 3232 guarantee. You're going to want to talk to your FYE advisor about that. Study abroad questions. When should students start planning out their study abroad plan so they don't get behind? And for study abroad, does Purdue cover some of the expenses, and how does that work?
For study abroad, for any of the programs, the academic study abroad programs, semester long or short term that I presented in this presentation that I listed up there in the slides, you need to apply to it a calendar year beforehand. So if it's a fall of your senior year program, then you're going to apply to it at the end of the fall semester of your junior year. So you don't need to have everything planned out your freshman year. That's not practical to do so at this point.
In terms of expenses, there are, I think, 3 different study abroad methods. There is the exchange, there's the direct enroll, and I'm blanking on what may be the third one, but I may also just be making the third one up.
Is it like a Gilman scholarship or something like that?
In terms of the programs, study abroad is going to be able to answer a lot of these questions a lot better than I can.
Yeah.
but we do have set semesters for the semester-long BME study abroad programs, and those are not until junior and senior year. Is it possible to get a BS/MS fifth year dual degree in BME?
Yes, that's something we did cover earlier in the presentation. We have a non-thesis option, a with thesis research-based option, and one option that, one non-thesis option also has an internship as well. So it might go a little bit beyond the fifth year depending on the length of the internship. But yeah, we have 3 options for a fifth year bachelor's master's program.
And we really start talking to students seriously about that during their junior year, because the application is due at the end of junior year. Other questions? No other questions in the chat.
Okay.
We will stick around for a few minutes. If you have questions that you just don't want to put in the chat, you just want to unmute yourself and talk. We'll stick around for those along with the ambassadors. Is there anything that the grad TAs need to tell students before they leave?
No.
Okay, you're dismissed. Have a good night.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. All right.
Thank you.
Yay. And have we stopped the recording? Okay, good. Yeah, is it okay if we hang on for just a few more